Buyur. شما زوما پریر کردن کار میکنه؟ ها چیزم گان آخرش نباشه. بود آموزش کشتگی باشه. هیچ میشنوه از میکروفون میشنوه باشه.
همینوره دیگه کوپ کنیم کامپیوتر شما بود. کجا رو کوپ کنیم؟ شما سرمون
بله.
ها؟
یه کامپیوتر ما بود.
شما رو چک کنیم. روز کامپیوتر شما دسترش نمی‌کنه. یه بار کپی پیست همین چهار دفعه کامپیوتر.
مردم چه داره؟ یه سرو چی کار باشه؟ وای. گازان چی گذاشت نه؟ که لواتو گازانی.
Так, меня слышно? Санжар, меня слышно?
Да, слышно.
Все вроде работает.
В русском канале слышно.
Слышно, отлично. Так, сейчас я на английский здесь включим, все включено. Мы же, сессия сейчас начинается у нас в час, да, по-нашему?
Че?
Рама.
Кто-то там разговаривает на фоне, у кого-то не выключен.
Там, где трибуна, микрофон не отключен.
А, все там на трибуне, все, поняла. Сейчас чья сессия? Опять они?
Все, значит, чему, да?
Меня слышно, Тураку? Попробуйте подключить, пошерить экран. У нас же разрешена эта функция шерить экран.
Где он? Он парень пришел?
А, все, пошло.
Тогда мы начинаем. Для тех, кто у нас сидит сегодня в зале, тут, чтобы вы знали, у нас весь павильон silent, поэтому для того, чтобы было слышно, нужно будет надевать наушники. Третий канал у нас общий здесь, пятый канал у нас будет перевод. Поэтому воспользуйтесь, пожалуйста, наушниками, чтобы вы хорошо слышали. Да, спасибо большое. So, we're going to be starting today's side event, organized jointly with the Committee for Environment Protection and Aga Khan Agency for Habitat on approach to environmental resilience from climate change in the high mountains of Tajikistan. Government of Tajikistan jointly with the government of Switzerland and the AKDN. For the first opening remarks by the organizers of today's side event, I would like to ask the representative of the Committee for Environment Protection, Mr. Turakul Murodov, to give his welcoming speech and welcoming remarks. Please, Mr. Murodov, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, dear participants who are attending today virtually from other sites, and dear colleagues who are attending personally in auditorium, let me forward the message of Mr. Sherezoda Bahadur Ahmadjan, the chairman of the Committee of Environmental Protection of the government of under the government of the Republic of Tajikistan. Just a few minutes ago, he left for some urgent events within the COP. So, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the side event organized by the Committee of Environmental Protection under the government of the Republic of Tajikistan, jointly with AKDN. The focus of this side event is on the expertise of the Agency of Hydrometeorology and the partner agencies on conduction of the monitoring and further utilization of data on adaptation to climate change and enhancing resilience. Dear delegates, if we look to Central Asia and the Republic of Tajikistan is the most climate vulnerable country in the region. Extreme rainfall events have become more frequent and intense. The rainfall season has shortened in many parts of the country. Air temperature have risen up to 1 Celsius degree in the recent decades, and glacial melting is accelerating. As a result, hydrometeorological disasters such as droughts, floods, mudflows, and landslides are more frequent, and rate of soil erosion across the country are increasing. The socio-economic impact of these changes are considerable. Livelihoods, agricultural productivity, water availability, and hydroelectricity production are all compromised. The vulnerability of Tajikistan to climate change is exacerbated by a low adaptive capacity. This vulnerability is expected to intensify intensify in the future, and consequently, the building of climate resilience across the country is of almost importance. Indeed, natural hazards, most of which are linked to climate change, such as droughts and landslide, result in annual losses equivalent to 20% of the country's GDP. An increase of the frequency and magnitude of such losses and further expected. In the future, loss amounts are expected to rise to 132 million USD by 2030. Distinguished delegates, the most foreseen negative effects of climate change in Tajikistan include glacial and permafrost melt, increased rainfall intensity, and longer and more frequent dry spells. Together, these effects have increased the rate of topsoil erosion, threatening the food, water, and energy security of the country. Approximately 33% of all agricultural losses in the country are currently attributable to climate change and variability. Glacial melt poses a particularly large risk, currently averaging 2 cubic kilometers per year and leading to meltwater flows, which often result in large-scale sheet and gully erosion. Ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy, along with the design and development of the National Adaptation Plan process, will present new opportunities for intervention in adaptation. Tajikistan has submitted its updated NDC in October 2021 with a strengthened focus on adaptation measures. NDC includes the changes in unconditional and conditional greenhouse gas emission reduction goal for 2030. Now the need for climate financing, technology transfer, and capacity building are required for the NDC roadmap implementation, which we under implementation right now, and we hope that it will be finalized within the coming months. At the end, I'd like to thank all of you for participation at today's event and wish you all successful work. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murodov. Indeed, please accept our sincere appreciation and also pass it to Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sherali Zoda. And also we do know that the overall kind of participation and also the role of the Committee for Environment Protection and also its subordinated agencies like Hydromet Agency, which are really working on the monitoring, on the gathering data, which are the crucial basis for all the risk analysis and overall kind of climate change analysis, which is done throughout the works in Tajikistan. So thank you very much. The next speaker and welcoming speech is, we have it through the video, Mr. Faiz Fyodgo, Governor of Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Oblast, Tajikistan. Please. Please excuse us for some technical problems we did with the voice and the volume of it. So the next speaker in welcoming speech, we do hope that there's not going to be any technical problems because we have our representative here, Mr. Hadi Hussaini, CEO, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat Tajikistan. Please, Mr. Hussaini, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, hopefully no issues with the video. Thank you all for being here. It's a great opportunity for us to talk through an amazing collaboration that we have with the government of Tajikistan and with the government of Switzerland and many other important partners that are making some important work in Tajikistan possible. I just want to take a moment. We'll talk a little bit about some of the really innovative approaches that the government of Tajikistan is using with its partners to try to address, try to engage civil society, to try to engage stakeholders, to try to engage the private sector in addressing the adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Just a little bit about what we are. The Aga Khan Agency for Habitat is an agency of the Aga Khan Development Network. The Aga Khan Development Network is a network that works around the world, working with governments, with communities to apply and input multi-input area development approaches. So these are approaches where we look at engaging with the private sector, engaging with health, with rural development, with education, with a whole set of activities in an area and engaging over the long term to try to be able to manifest real change. Now, in the context of climate change, that's particularly relevant. And one of the things that we've been modeling and testing is an approach that we'll walk through where we look at urban resilience and rural resilience to the impact of climate change. One of the great opportunities that the government of Tajikistan, from the president's office down to the environmental protection colleagues, Hydromet, the geology departments, the committees of emergency situations and civil defense, we've all been able to come together as a team to try to look at the issue of climate change. We've all been able to come together and look at the various facets that have to be addressed across themes and actually use that to engage with the people that are most at risk, the communities that are in high mountain environments that see their quality of life impacted because of climate change on a regular basis. You'll hear a little bit from the governor and from our colleagues from Switzerland about the way that this engagement happens and some of the elements and why it's so relevant. But I just wanted to take an opportunity here while we're together to thank the Committee for Environmental Protection, Hydromet, all of our colleagues who have really been at the forefront of engaging in a way that is really multi-dimensional and multi-factioned, and it's something that has real impact so far. So thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us for what will be an interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hussaini. Indeed, all we know in the Committee for Environment Protection and also the Agency of Hydrometeorology, the support and the collaboration and contribution of the Aga Khan Habitat, that overall during all these days, with the support of the Aga Khan Habitat helicopter aerial surveys and also several expeditions and other stuff that within the monitoring issues have been done so far, and supporting issues are on a daily basis, we can say it like this. So thank you very much. And the next speaker and welcoming speech is also going to be the video one, and we do hope that now we do not going to be having other options. So please, now we're going to be trying one more time Yodgor Faizev, the governor of Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Oblast.
Your
Please.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the participation in the COP26 process and for your continued interest and support to Tajikistan to adapt to the climate change. Tajikistan in general and Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Oblast particularly vulnerable to climate change. Year by year, we are feeling its impact on agriculture and food security, fauna and flora, even people and crop health, and especially intensity of nature disaster. The government of Tajikistan, as you have been hearing during these past few days and in today's session as making significant step toward development of policy and procedures and taking financial and technical measures to build resilience toward climate change. Because of sudden change of the temperature and season, like very cold and long winter, short and unpredictable spring, very hot summer, unclear autumn, shortage of water in some places, and other problems, government is working with farmers, for example, to upspeed the planting season by provision of machinery and new technology, to find shorter vegetation crop, to find the drought resistant seed, usage of the drip irrigation, greenhouses, and better soil and water method of the conservation and other practical actions. Because of the change of the temperature and many villages at the high altitude, farmers now changing their practice from crop to the livestock, which is good, but it has another dimension, degradation of the pasture because of the big number of the livestock compared to the current capacity of the pasture. To avoid this kind of the disaster, we are working with communities to develop their pasture management plan, to diversify their source of income, to help with marketing and other value chain elements. Gorno-Barshan Oblast doesn't have its own source of the coal or gas, and in the Soviet time, electricity was provided mainly by the diesel generator everywhere for the people for cooking and eating and lighting. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, we almost lost all our forestry, and we faced a huge deforestation and even desertification in Murgab district. Thanks to the government, development partners, and our rich resource of the water, we managed to build several hydro and solar power stations that to provide clean energy to all the people. It is now very nice to see again our forests are becoming green, and we are following on the best recommendation and initiatives are coming from the COP26 session. Forestation and trees plantation is now one of the key tasks of every citizen. 97% territory of Gbao is mountain. As a result of the glacier melt and sometimes creating mountain lake, and after this outbreaks, flood, avalanche, mud flows, landslide, we are losing our main infrastructure, and the damage is $1,000 every year, and unfortunately, even we are losing people life. Horok city, capital of Gbao, by itself also located in the middle of the mountains, and with the 3 rivers coming from 3 valleys and suffering both from the local and also remote hazards. Additionally, Horok was built extensively since last century, and it is facing now not only challenges related to the climate change, but also strong demographic pressure because of the urbanization and also degradation of the main infrastructure and difficulties in delivering on the key municipality services. Many functions of the municipality delivery depend only on one source. For example, one source of the water, one source of electricity, one road, one bridge, and other, which is very dangerous if some of them will be collapsed. For addressing these challenges, government of Tajikistan, under leadership of His Excellency President Emomali Rahmon, initiated a process that we are piloting in Gbao to bring together national and oblast government with the communities, private sector, international partners in building resilience to the climate change in our urban and rural habitats. One of the flagship projects that you will be hearing today in today's session is Horok or Urban Resiliency Program. This initiative of the government of Tajikistan will be implemented in partnership with the government of the Switzerland and Aga Khan Development Network to develop mechanisms and tools that government can work with the most risk communities, the most vibrant members of the civil society, representative of the private sector, to develop a solution to environmental resilience that are targeted, specific, and sustainable. It is something new for the government staff, and we need a lot of practical capacity building and learning to have the capacity and confidence to put in place sustainable resilience and enabling investment to support economic growth too. Khorog has model of the resilient city can contribute to the development of wider area by offering quality education, world-class health services, and clean energy. Fortunately, we have been able to work with the United Nations Agency, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, and other experts to develop procedure, framework, and agreements, and to make it reality. Hopefully, this pilot could be then further replicated in other parts of Tajikistan and even beyond of the country. Once again, our thanks to the government of the Switzerland, Aga Khan Development Network, and other donors and partners who joined us in this important initiative. Wish you a productive session and looking forward to host you in Gorno-Badakhshan of Tajikistan. Thank you very much for your attention.
We do thank Mr. Faizov for the welcoming speech and brief description of the overall work that is being done and the cooperation between all the agencies and the government of the Republic of Tajikistan. So the next speech, welcoming speech, is going to be the Philip Keller, Head Infrastructure Financing, State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO, Switzerland. And we do have it through the video, please.
Your Excellencies, Chairman of the Committee of Environment Protection of the Republic of Tajikistan, Governor of the Gorno-Badakhshan region in Tajikistan, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this important event at the UN Climate Change Conference COP26. It's a privilege to be virtually present with you in Glasgow. I would like to focus on these introductory remarks on two topics. First, on the need for an integrated approach to resilient urban development, and second, the importance of long-term innovative partnerships to develop such approaches. Climate change has serious consequences for people and the environment. It particularly affects the poorest segments of the world's population. Climate change is therefore one of the priorities of the Swiss International Cooperation Strategy for the period 2021 to 2024. In its international cooperation activities, Switzerland systematically takes into account climate-related risks as well as mitigation and adaptation measures in the design and monitoring of its activities. Within its economic development cooperation, Switzerland promotes performance, competitiveness, and resilience of its partner countries while creating employment and income perspectives for local populations. In doing so, we support reliable economic framework conditions for equal access to markets and opportunities for people and companies. This also includes the promotion of integrated and resilient urban development. Why this focus on urban areas? Because in the coming decades, population growth will primarily take place in cities and towns. These urban areas are often considered to be hubs for innovation, job creation, and economic growth. At the same time, cities are exceptionally affected by complex and multi-sectoral challenges, including the impacts of climate change, notably in high mountain settlements. Switzerland therefore focuses on improving the resilience of cities towards natural disasters and on promoting sustainable urban development for climate-friendly economic growth. In this context, I would like to highlight what Switzerland is doing in Tajikistan to leverage the development potential of cities and towns in sustainable and climate-friendly manner. Climate change mitigation and support for communities and government institutions to adapt to the impacts of climate change are some of the main areas of collaboration in the long-standing partnership between Switzerland and Tajikistan. Switzerland and Tajikistan are both mountainous countries. People living in mountain areas are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and face multiple hazards. In a warming world with melting glaciers, these disasters are increasingly frequent and their impacts more devastating. In Switzerland, for many years, there has been an emphasis on assessing and understanding risks and to integrate them into urban planning. At the national and city government levels, experts, citizens, and the municipalities work together to assess and understand risks. The aim is that policies in urban planning are risk-informed and that infrastructure investments are made in a resilient manner. The Swiss government supports countries such as Tajikistan to implement these practices and to plan for future generations. The Horog Urban Resilience Program is a good example of this support. This partnership between the government of Tajikistan and the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO, links planning and investments by the Tajik government with investments and initiatives by the community, the private sector, and international partners under a resilient planning framework. The program supports the national and municipal governments in becoming resilient vis-à-vis shocks and stresses, in providing reliable basic public services, and in assuring that infrastructure investments are risk-informed and coordinated. It does so by building the systems, the capacity, and the infrastructure to improve the built environment, and as a result, the quality of life for citizens. Technical know-how from Swiss experts, global best practice such as UN Habitat recommendations for resilient town planning, and local knowledge are combined to create innovative solutions. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, initiatives like the Horog Urban Resilience Program build upon long-term partnerships like the deep engagement of Switzerland with the government of Tajikistan over the last 30 years. Such partnerships are vital to identify and develop solutions that are grounded in community needs to promote resilience, reliable infrastructure services, and hazard mitigation. Long-term innovative partnerships are, in our experience, a key driver to realize development impact. We are convinced that this approach will become even more crucial as the world continues to face interconnected challenges in public health with the COVID-19 pandemic and with climate change, impacting the lives and livelihoods of people across the globe. I would like to thank the government of Tajikistan, the Aga Khan Development Network, and the many other partners who have joined us in this important initiative. Together, we strive to make a difference, building on innovative and long-term partnership to increase resilience of vulnerable communities towards the impacts of climate change. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. By this, we are finalizing the official parts with the welcoming speech of the side event, and we are getting to the second part, to the sessions with the presentation. And the first presentation on Government of Tajikistan International Community Approach to Climate Change Resilience is going to be given by Mr. Hadi Husani, CEO, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat Tajikistan. Please, Mr. Husani, the floor is yours.
Thank you all so much. Just get the presentation up. So perhaps while it's coming up, let me tell you a little bit about what you're going to see. So what we have tried to do is we've tried to walk through, as both the governor and our colleagues from SECO and our colleagues from the Committee for Hydrometeorology and Environmental Protection have talked through. The way that we've been engaging has been together to address climate change. And there's a number of different components that go into it, including the elements that we've talked about as part of the NDC. So what we'll walk through is, from a government of Tajikistan perspective, how they've reached out to the international community, how they've reached out to the individuals on the ground, and how we've jointly built a set of tools. And those tools, they include looking at the ways in which we can understand where the risks are to communities, helping the government of Tajikistan and partners actually address some of those risks on the ground with response capacities, with early warning systems, with ways to track changes as they come. And then we'll walk through, as we just heard, one of the really innovative initiatives is where we take a lot of these programs and apply them in one space, which is in a town called Korog, which is a high mountain town surrounded by beautiful mountains all around, very difficult to get to, isolated for a good chunk of the year, but one of the places that is very much at the cusp of climate change impact, and so we'll walk through that. So, well, just to kick it off, one of the things you're seeing here is the context in Tajikistan. So Tajikistan is a very mountainous country. 73% of the population is at significant risk, and they're in rural areas. You see here some of the impact of climate change in terms of triggering rockfalls and other events, natural hazard events. We go to the next slide. Yeah, we can see that the impact of climate change in terms of monetary impact is quite significant, over $500 million between this period up until 2014. And we're looking at about $20 million a year with about 5% of GDP at risk. His Excellency, in his statement, talked a little bit about the vulnerability and the adaptive capacity that Tajikistan has. And as you can see from the World Bank study of Central Asian and European countries, Tajikistan is the most at risk, and it has the second to least adaptive capacity. So it really is a country that we need to spend a lot of time on trying to build up that area, that capacity. Next slide. Just to make it a little bit real, what you're seeing here is the village of Dash, and this is one of the villages that we led an emergency response to with the state in 2002. This is what Dash looked like before. This was in the spring of 2002, and below you see the picture of what Dash looked like afterwards. So these are events that now happen with real frequency and real impact. Yeah, they impact not only sorry, I think we've lost the screen. They impact not only lives and property, but also the key infrastructure that underpins quality of life: energy infrastructure, road infrastructure, transport infrastructure, all of those things that are critical to being able to have a high quality of life. So on to the next slide, if we could. So at a very high level, when we talk a little bit about the NDCs that the government of Tajikistan is aspiring to meet, we look a little bit at where our joint areas of engagement are, and these are around health, food, and water security, infrastructure in the built environment, and on ecosystems and ecosystem services. And the next slide walks us through kind of what that looks like in terms of specific components. So we look at, again, just I'll very quickly leave it there for a second just for you to take a look at. There's activities around assessing lakes, assessing water infrastructure, understanding where the watersheds are and what needs to be done for them. The aerial assessments that we talked through. We do a lot of work with the government on trying to map out how that knowledge, how that information can actually be streamlined into systems, and then how we use those systems to actually facilitate responses. And then once we have that base of response, we actually use that to then ensure that that infrastructure that's built is built based on resilient principles and is built based on best practice for green construction. Yeah, so on to the next slide, if we could. And the next. So again, just for you to see what some of these lakes look like. These are the glacial runoffs that turn into glacial lakes. And our teams from Tajikistan, from Russia, and from other parts of the world go up to these lakes and do these assessments to actually determine the volume The next slide will show you the lakes that we've assessed with hydrometeorology and the Committee of Environmental Protection. These are, there's about 27 of the top high risk 50. So over the next 4 to 5 years, we're hoping to be able to understand the volume of each of the top 50 high risk lakes, and then be able to track that on an ongoing basis. Beyond that, we work with the state on making sure that the irrigation infrastructure that leads to addressing food security and food insecurity, that those are actually built to a resilient standard, because as you can see, they're largely impacted by the impacts of climate change. Along with that, a number of interventions that we do in water supply and water investments. Talk a little bit about the knowledge generation piece around ecosystems, and one of the interventions that our colleagues from hydrometeorology will walk through is the open centers for data sharing that we have established with the state. So I won't spend a lot of time on that, but some of the data that you'll see coming out of it are the watershed assessments that are the next slide. And with this, what we do is we actually look at not just what's happening at a settlement, at a community level. We're looking at the whole ecosystem. We're looking at what happens at the very top where the glaciers are, and how that translates into activities and interventions all the way through down until where the habitable areas are. And that's not just looking at issues around forestation and soil and things like that, watershed, the water components, but also what is the wildlife that's there? What are the challenges that could be triggered by long-term changes in irrigation and forestation? Some of the tools that we use to do that are with the state, we deploy a fleet of drones, and these are drones that help us get a lot of this detailed information, translate that into models that we can use for actually determining where the resources to address these risks should go. And then the next slide we'll walk through at a village level. We then take that knowledge, we then take that information and work with communities, with the various state agencies to help them build plans at the community level. Where is climate change going to impact your home? Where do you need to look at changing where you want to build a school to be able to build it in an area that's safe? Where do you want to build safe havens and put in stockpiles of emergency goods to be able to deal with a climate change triggered natural disaster event? All of these activities we then do with the state at the village level. And all of that knowledge then feeds into this infrastructure. So there's this knowledge sharing that's among a number of government departments and various oblast offices, where that knowledge is shared, it's pooled. We take emergency information from the Committee of Emergency Situations. We compile that with hydrometeorological information from Hydromet, with Academy of Science studies on glaciology, with inputs from the Transport Ministry on where the road infrastructure is. All of that then leads to us being able to answer that question: where are assets and individuals at risk, and how do we pull that together to actually design response profiles for those? And then what do those response profiles look like? So we then, if we go on to the next slide, we'll see that is actually then going out to mitigate the work. So with the state, we've initiated over 360 structural mitigation activities. These are activities to reinforce riverbanks. They're there to build up terraces for avalanches, address rockfall risks, things of that nature. We actually do a lot of emergency response with the state, so supporting the state in actually responding to avalanches, helping to evacuate communities before an avalanche hits through forecasting, things of that nature. A lot of work on simulations and drills. Yeah, the next slide. Really building up that capacity to respond, making it part of the muscle memory of these communities. One of the big ones that is largely informed by the Los Angeles Police Department is the shakeout drill that we do across Tajikistan. There's about 6 million people who participate in that every year. And then coupled with that, the next slide walks through some of the infrastructure we put in. So emergency communications infrastructure. We do this with the Committee of Emergencies. These are high frequency stations, very high frequency stations. run by community members. So these are community members able to talk to each other, able to understand where an emergency has happened, what is happening in their context. If the water changes color, the community has an ability to communicate with villages downstream saying we might need to be worried about a potential event, all part of a network that we put in. We tie that to actual search and rescue. So we have state partnered search and rescue teams that we deploy across the country. And beyond that, there's a network of community volunteers. So at the community level, once we address those risks and identify those risks, we have a team of about 4,500 now active volunteers that engage. And these are the first line responders that in their communities, in their homes, are the ones that come out during those initial hours of an emergency while the rest of the apparatus starts to engage. We also have across the country now, close to, I believe we're in the range of about 100 or so stockpiles of emergency goods for when a climate change triggered emergency does happen. And these include tents, these include blankets, these include non-food items, hygiene kits, things that would be required for children who are impacted, people with special needs. All of those are part of our stockpiles that are jointly managed and run by the Committee of Emergency Situations and Civil Defense, ourselves, the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, and the Community Emergency Response Teams. And then beyond that, we do a lot of work with actually building up the actual infrastructure that's required for this. So what you're seeing here is one of the hospitals that we recently built in Korog, the Aga Khan Medical Center, and a lot of the work on water supply and other roads, bridges, and other infrastructure that we do in order to make communities more resilient. Along with early warning systems. This is an early warning system for Lake Serez, one of the largest glacial lakes in the world. Beyond that as well, we do then get into the planning components where we look at what you're seeing here is an example of an at-risk community in one of the valleys, the Barthong Valley, which we are working with MIT and others to actually design solutions for. So if they were to relocate to areas that were safer, we've done a lot of the pre-work for that relocation with the Committee of Emergencies and a number of other government agencies. And then we do a lot of engagement with the state on actually building structures that are climate friendly, that have all of the best practices around greenhouse gas emissions, incorporate in solar energy. This is one example in Korog. It's a youth center that's been established to a LEED standard for the country. There's a lot of engagement around actually making unsafe areas safe using resilient practices and making them into areas that are socially good as well. This is a slope stabilization initiative that we're kicking off this year. And so all of that, these are all tools. These are all ways that we're engaging. But what we're looking to do is actually bring all of that together in one program. And what our colleague from SECO has walked through, the Korog Urban Resilience Program is that project where we take all of these interventions and focus it on a particular area. And I know we're a little short on time, so I'll go through this very quickly. But what we're looking at is, as part of this program, making information available, looking at early warnings, enhancing economic growth, building up economic opportunity, while reducing infrastructure damage from climate change triggered natural events, limiting the impact on basic services, limiting economic loss and loss of livelihoods, and reducing the impact on affected people. We're doing that through a set of activities. At the very high level, we're engaging at the policy level. We're building up an institutional capacity to be able to deliver a long-term program. We're then working on actually building a number of proof of concepts that would inform the development of a town plan that is resilient and that has a resilient investment plan associated with it. And then we actually go on to do a lot of the work. So we'll quickly go through these. Yeah, no, we'll skip to the next. Yep, the next and the next. And so just very quickly, very visually, so you can see what some of that looks like. The inputs of the town plan we conducted with UN Habitat to actually understand where some of these major risks are that can then be incorporated into town planning for the city. And using this, we then started addressing some of the big risks, such as the next slide, which talks through where is urban expansion in current hazard zones. And then beyond that, how do we take that urban expansion and actually mitigate the impact from climate change triggered disasters, which is the next slide. So putting in things like growth restrictions in areas, putting in hazard mitigation. We've now done all of that pre-work that can go into town planning that is resilient and can address some of the climate change triggered events. And then again, looking at how that all impacts kind of the links to social services. Tied to this, one of the key things that we're trying to do is we don't want to do climate change interventions in a vacuum. We're trying to build an industry around it. So some examples of that are gabion weaving enterprises, where a lot of the mitigation work that's going to be done for communities is done through women-headed gabion weaving initiatives. And then we have proof of concept, such as the one we talked about, the slope stabilization. Work on making the water supply more resilient to economic and natural hazard shocks. And then some of the really great ones that the governor talked through, where we're linking all of this to actually hearing the voice of the communities and having them be a part of the process. And one example of that is a competition we just had, where communities contributed to determining what their vision would be for Korog. And if you'll allow me, I'll just take a couple of minutes to show you a quick video of what that looks like, that engagement. the communities, the children, all the stakeholders there really got involved. I think we had over 250 entries at the end, and it was an amazing process. I'll quickly sign off, but the last couple slides, just there's a to do this, it needs a number of partners, and we've been very fortunate to have across the government and across the international community a number of key stakeholders. And just to kind of put all this in context so you can see visually what this looks like, we'll close off with a short video of what how this all comes together in the context of climate change. Yeah, the next slide. So with that, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time and the interest, and look forward to any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Hussaini, for the comprehensive presentation on what have been done so far and on approaches of environmental resilience in high mountains of Tajikistan. Indeed, we all know the support of the, as we have said, of Aga Khan Agency of Habitat and also cooperation with all the governmental agencies in Tajikistan and the overall support and the works that we have evidenced so far. And we do know and we do kind of be sure that all these cooperations are going to be more and more strengthening and kind of going on forward. The next presentation is going to be regarding the climate change adaptation, the overall practice and expertise of the Agency of Hydrometeorology in Tajikistan. And it's going to be split in two parts, in two presenters we're going to be having here. First part is going to be regarding the adaptation measures that is being done throughout the work and the work plans of the Agency of Hydrometeorology. And the second part, the monitoring processes that are done throughout in the Agency of Hydrometeorology for the work of the resilience, adaptation, mitigation, and all the policy of the United Nations framework of Convention on Climate Change, which is the focal point, is the Agency of Hydrometeorology. Now for this, we are asking to kind of start the first part of the presentation, Mr. Muzaffar Shodmonov, the climate change consultant of the Agency of Hydrometeorology. Please, Mr. Shodmonov, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Hadi Hussaini, for your comprehensive presentation. It was really nice to hear. And I would like to, now the colleagues are putting the presentation on, and I would like to shift to Russian language because we have a translation, and I think there is a fifth channel with a translation on the Russian. Уважаемые участники сегодняшнего сайд-ивента, я хотел вам предоставить краткую информацию о сотрудничестве Агентства по гидрометеорологии по вопросам адаптации, по вопросам снижения риска стихийных бедствий, по вопросам раннего оповещения. Ну, можно сказать, есть такая маленькая предыстория, как наше сотрудничество начиналось с партнерами по развитию в лице фонда Ага Хана. Плюс к этому были задействованы другие партнеры, как швейцарский офис по развитию, это правительство Швейцарии. Можно сказать, что в предыдущие годы, это в 2009 году, была начата инициатива со стороны фонда Ага Хана, со стороны правительства Республики Таджикистан. Плюс к этому были подключены другие партнеры, как Австрийский университет БОКу, то есть специалисты-геологи, специалисты по моделированию, специалисты по управлению рисками стихийных бедствий. Они посетили Таджикистан совместно с правительством Республики Таджикистан, совместно с фондом Ага Хана. В 2009 году была инициирована программа по оценке удаленных угроз в Республике Таджикистан. Основная цель данной оценки была определение горных угроз, можно сказать, в горных районах, геоугроз, геологических угроз и плюс оценка прорыва опасных озер. Была проделана очень большая работа. Сначала специалисты совместно со специалистами Таджигидромета, то есть международные специалисты совместно со специалистами Таджигидромета, они провели как бы офисную работу на месте. Были выбраны пилотные районы совместно со специалистами были выбраны пилотные районы, совместно были проведены оценки по картографированию, то есть спутниковые снимки, топографические снимки, геология Таджикистана была тоже оценена. Ну, с того времени мы начали свое сотрудничество, и вот как бы в рамках этого сотрудничества мы достигли уже вот наших дальнейших шагов. Плюс к этому Таджикистан уже разработал свой NDC, как это уже было оговорено. В нашем NDC также учитываются вопросы раннего оповещения, вопросы снижения риска стихийных бедствий, вопросы устойчивости. Плюс к этому правительство Таджикистана уже утвердило национальную стратегию по адаптации. В рамках данной стратегии тоже проводятся работы. В дальнейшем уже будет планироваться разработка национального плана по адаптации, куда будут вовлечены все государственные структуры, частный сектор и международные партнеры по развитию для выполнения данной стратегии. Ну, к этому я вам привел так краткую информацию о, как бы сказать, о институциональной структуре, которая была проделана, какая работа была проделана в прошлом и к чему мы пришли. Но вторую часть, я надеюсь, то, что наш коллега Сатор Саидов, специалист агентства по гидрометеорологии, предоставит вторую часть презентации. Спасибо большое.
Thanks all participants and the organizers that give me opportunity to say a word in this wonderful conference. Also, I can see that a professor from California is in our meeting today. He is very lucky to work in Tajikistan. Maybe in the future we can do something in this field. He told me that he would be very lucky to work in Tajikistan. He is a professor and he is teaching students. So we can think about that. Briefly, I want to tell a little bit about my organization, which is as well known that information is the basic for management, and Agency for Hydrometeorology is a leader in this field in Tajikistan. We have more than 100 years of meteorological data. If it's possible, next slide. Yeah. I will, if we are speaking about the agency, I just put this slide for the topography of Tajikistan, that people should know that it is very difficult to make predictions and in such events like mud floods and globes in Tajikistan, because the territory mostly a mountain area, more than 90%. Next slide, please. This is the result of this image. This is the mean maximum height of snow cover in winter season. So these kinds of data we have in different fields, in hydrological, in cryosphere, in temperature, meteorological. Background of this image is a lot of work, because 30 years of data collecting, and after analyzing and modeling, we have this kind of result, for example. Next slide, please. This is the mean annual rainfall. We can see that the capital of Tajikistan is Dushanbe, and in this area, more than 1,800 millimeter per year is the annual rainfall. So this is good and big enough of rainfall. And Tajikistan is rich of water, and more than 50% of Central Asia water is in our mountain area. Next slide, please. And this is beautiful image of glacier, of Fechinka Glacier, in which the amount of fresh water more than even in Alps, if I'm not mistaken. This is such dangerous events that can happen in Tajikistan, from floods, avalanches, freezing, snowfall, dryness, mudslides, and other ways. Tajikistan, if we take the temperature, in the most highest temperature was fixed plus 48 in the August, and the most cold one is minus 63 in winter. That's why we have everything from melting of glacier till the dryness. Now, I will show the meteorological observation network. This is our Tajikistan have more than 56 observation meteorological stations. And next slide, please. It will show. Oh, he mixed. Okay, but we have also 96 hydrological posts. With this data, we can collect the information, analyze it, and do prediction. After we take all of information from this data, we analyzing models and other things. We'll try to give the information to the other state organization. First of all, the emergency state and to the office of president. After that, they can contribute this information to the other government organization. Next slide, please. This slide was shown by my colleague. This is the result of GLOF in the Dasht. After that, the communication between the Aga Khan and the Agency for Hydrometeorology became stronger. Aga Khan Foundation is trying to do the observation of glaciers. If I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 times in a year, they take our specialists and with them, they do observation of glaciers in Tajikistan. Next slide, please. After analyzing this image shows us 20 years of analyzing and in which territory there was the flood. So the fix of flood, we can see the most territory of Tajikistan except of eastern part of Pamir are dangerous for this kind of events. Next slide, please. This slide shows us what kind of models, maps, prediction things we are using when we try to predict this kind of hazards. Next slide. After that, we have also the online early warning system, which is made with the help of Russian Federation and all Central Asia countries can put the information from which people or organizations can can understand what kind of hazard events will happen in near maybe 2 or 3 days. This part I think were told by my friends, and for this I think I can stop because first part was already told. Thanks everybody for your attention. If anyone have question, I can ask. I can enter.
Thank you very much. Indeed, for Mr. Satorov. He's one of the great specialists of the Agency of Hydrometeorology, the head of the Department of the Weather Forecasting, which is the overall forecast system of the Tajikistan is in his hands. So that is why he's a little bit getting all these issues onto the way and the right track. We are moving forward to our side event. So we are starting the part of the discussions and questions and answers. If we do gonna be having any other questions, if from the chat box or from the floor, please, the floor is open for the questions. Toyer, if you can scroll up, if there is gonna be any kind of the questions. I mean, beside the problems, just the questions. Move on. Toyer, can you move on to others if there is no? Okay. Seems we do not have the question from the floor and also from the chat box. We do have. Okay. Please, here. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Hello, my name is Guljan Yermek. I am from Kazakhstan. So thank you very much for all your presentation. It's really comprehensive and impressive. So my question is there any like platform which gathers all this information and which is available for general public? Did I understand? And the second question, so that was first question. Second question is any attempts cooperation with other Central Asian countries in climate adaptation measures with like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So Mr. Shodmonov is ready to answer on this, and maybe there's going to be a compliment from Mr. Rusani on these issues. Yeah, thank you. Please, Mr. Shodmonov.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, there is a platform. Let's say one of the platform is the partnership with AKDN. The platform, you mean, in the partnership with the AKDN, we developed the partner platform, which is collecting the early warning, let's say, early warning data, or collecting the data for the preparation of the early warnings for the society of Tajikistan. And even the civil society can access to this data through the website of the Agency on Hydrometeorology. The second is regarding the regional cooperation. So, as you know, the Agency of Hydrometeorology is permanent representative with the WMO, I mean the World Meteorological Organization. And we, of course, we have the regional cooperation in the region, in the world, with other Met offices through the arrangements, through the like engagement with the World Meteorological Organization. On the adaptation side, on the regional side, I think there was some intervention between the countries, I mean Central Asian countries, to develop the regional climate change adaptation strategy. And I think the CAREC was also involved in this initiative, and most of the interventions were conducted in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Please, Mr. Muradov.
Yeah, let me add regarding the regional cooperation on climate change information. So, as you may know, recently within the one regional project, the Conference with Central Climate Adaptation Program for Aral Sea Basin, within its regional component, which implemented by CAREC, was established the regional climate platform. So all the 5 countries that can put their information. So now it's managed by CAREC. So it's we can say it's intent for several group of beneficiaries. So starting from the from at national level, at local level, so people, ordinary people, the farmer can get climate information, for example, about climate technology, how to find, for example, climate resilient seeds or something like that. Another level of beneficiaries for decision makers. So based on the provided information, they will decide, they will make a decision at policy level. The top level is the regional level. It's for the region. So how the region countries, they can use that information and how they can take decision or how they move forward on that. So I think, for example, the Tajikistan already signed such kind of agreement with the CAREC on using and use and operation of this climate platform information. I think other countries also they already supported and they will continue to cooperate within this platform. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Muradov. Indeed, if you gonna be having a time, so next week you can attend the side event on the Central Asian Climate Change Information Portal, which is gonna be here, and also this pavilion here, 511, it says that, for example, this kind of the regional events here we are gathering. So this is the information sharing, this is the collaboration, this is the platform where we can kind of jointly get to some ways of kind of, collaboration in the regional level, and also getting all together to the global level, not just thinking about the Central Asia, but for the global level of getting all these issues and the problems. If any, okay, please, Mike. Satur.
The presentations I've seen here today involve very advanced skill sets and expertise. And I've heard in a number of the other pavilions a problem of brain drain, of highly educated people in developing nations, leaving their nations, taking employment in the West after enormous investment on the part of the countries in educating these young people. Is this a problem in Tajikistan, and what measures are you taking to help overcome this?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, who's gonna be taking the floor to answer the question? Maybe Mr. Shodmonov, you have something to add on these issues? Because as far as we know, kind of the overall capacity building issues that are going on within the Agency of Hydrometeorology with the support of the all developing parties and others are ongoing, please.
Yes, of course, there is a such issue, as you mentioned, the brain immigration, or how it's called. But still, most of the young people which are coming to work to the agency, they're starting with like some usual daily works, and then they are involved in some analysis, in some investigations. Then they involved in a expeditions such as aerovisual surveys for the glaciers. Of course, they learn a lot, and of course we have a staff turnover too in our agency. They learn a lot, then leave us, the newcomers come. So now we are seeing like to train the trainers, let's say. The staff which is inside the hydromet, which is working like over 10 years or 15 years, like they're the trainers for the newcomers. But of course, there is still some issues with the staff turnover. Then other projects which are implemented inside the Agency of Hydrometeorology also considers the capacity building of the staff, bringing some methodologies, some technologies. But I know in the future, I hope that like in the cooperation with the partners or development partners like AKDN, of course, we will like assess this problem, the problem of the staff turnover and the problem of the capacity building among the agency staff. And I think Sator also have something to say on this.
Yeah, thank you. I think Mr. Saidov has something to complement on this, please.
Yes, also in agency for hydrometeorology, we have a system of education, distance education. So we can think in this field, maybe we can organize some kind of online courses in the meteorological field, in the glacier, climate, agro, if possible. Also in this field, we need good teachers from foreign countries with a new point of view. Maybe some kind of these things we can organize in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Of
Because
course, the new
we have-
technologies and all these, you know, the features have to be used, but till the end, and it has to
No,
be.
of course,
kind of done, yeah.
there should be some points discussed like on motivation, let's say,
Sure.
on stimulation of the young people, because as you know, it's need to be done. Like the stimulation and motivation is one of the key points. Thank you.
Of course, this is kind of, you know, a good part when it's going to be more interactive in order to have all these kind of questions and answers and all these, you know, communication-based issues. And as far as we know, for example, the AKA in kind of Aga Khan agency is supporting on the training the agencies and also the staff on the GIS mapping and other issues that are going. If you have something to add on these issues, please, Mr. Sane.
Maybe just an interesting observation that I've had as someone who's had an opportunity to be in Tajikistan for many years. While there is some brain drain, while there are opportunities that others look to pursue, Tajikistan is one of those places where, because of what is happening, because of the nature of the people of Tajikistan, because of the context, because of the environment, you actually sometimes have reverse brain drain, where you have people from all over the world trying to come to Tajikistan to be a part of the opportunity to find solutions to these issues. So while you may have some of that issue, you do have a lot of goodwill, a lot of interest, and Tajikistan is one of the places where you see this on full display, and where when the international community, when folks from abroad do come back in and work with the people from Tajikistan, you see huge impact right away. It's a very enabling place, and I think that's why with the capacity building programs we do, with the initiatives we do, they have fruit, they reap fruit right away, and that coupled with the real engagement and outreach to the world, it makes it a great testing place for great ideas. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And if there is no other questions, we kind of getting to the end, and we have just 2 more minutes in order to finalize our timing. I just want to get a little bit kind of conclusion stuff on these issues. Is kind of nevertheless of these pandemic issues, we do know that we are now gathered here. We do kind of we have gathered here on a physical, and also we do have other by using technical and techniques and all new technologies. We do have more than maybe 50 or around 100 people are attending to the Zoom now, and getting to know because on the previous parts, how many people had to attend, I mean, could attend to these kind of the meetings. They were kind of knew what's going on here, and just within the news they were kind of getting all these issues. But now all these techniques and technologies do let us know to be part of these kind of the events just online and on the time, and to be, and also to have an opportunity to kind of take part in the discussions, and also to be part of these negotiations. So that is why I would on the end would like to thank Mr. Hadi Hussaini also and the Aga Khan Agency for the Habitat and Committee for Environmental Protection, and to kind of our sincere appreciation to Mr. Sherali Zoda. Please, Mr. Muradov, if you pass to him. The issue of resilience, the issue of adaptation, the climate change. We do know that the climate change does not have borders and does not know the borders. So that is why we are gathered here, why we are here on the regional kind of pavilion here. And also during the past 26 years now, we do have, I mean, all our region have this home, and we do know that we can kind of, we do know that the global kind of, in the global level, they do gonna be hearing our voice now. The regional platform here, and also the Central Asian countries gathered together with one voice in kind of 5 countries in one region. And at the end, I would like to ask Mr. Hadi Hussaini in order to get some other conclusions, if you do have on this issue, because I do have it on my agenda, so that is why. Thank you very much.
Maybe I'll just do it here from here, but just again, a very big thank you to all of our colleagues, to yourself for the wonderful moderation, and to for everyone for being here as a part of this. It's a big problem. It's a big challenge, and Tajikistan is at the forefront of where we are. But that spirit of openness, that spirit of engagement, that spirit of partnership that the government of Tajikistan continues to always extend to its partners, and to the communities and the private sector, and everyone who's working on this big challenge. It's what makes it addressable. It's what makes it something that is in our sights, and something that together we can get to. So thank you again for that. Yeah. Always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. And by this, we are closing our session for today. And we do ask all our partners and also delegates from other countries, not just the Central Asian region, to attend to our side events, because each day we do have like at least 2-3 side events here. And by the thematic part, they are all kind of available, and it can be found through the website cop26.karekeko.org. And from where you can find out the program, and also who's going to be organized and what thematic part are going to be presented here throughout the side events. Please our sincere appreciation to all who attended physically here and also online throughout the Zoom. Thank you very much. And by this, we are closing our session. Thank you.